Hello, everybody. Welcome back in the North Star Takes podcast. This is actually a special edition here. About to give my first impressions on the release of the Vikings schedule, the 2022 season. A big day in the NFL. But before we get to that, as you can see, Bailey won't be joining us tonight, but he will be early next week. We'll definitely do a full breakdown of the schedule, dissect it a little bit more, kind of get into the nitty gritty details, and probably go game by game and make our early predictions, obviously months in advance. So, but again, as always, definitely hit the subscribe button below, as well as give us a follow on Twitter and Instagram. Keep up with us there. But let's just get right into it. I mean, this Viking schedule, there's a lot of things, as always, to look at that kind of pops off the page to you. I think the first one to me was that we have just two true primetime games. We got the week 2 game in Philly that everybody knows about on Monday Night Football. And then now it was actually reported earlier in the day, we're going to play at home against the New England Patriots on Thanksgiving night. So those are our two like true primetime games, I would say. There's no built-in Sunday night games on the schedule yet, albeit that one gets flexed quite a bit. So I could see a game later in the season turning into that. And we got plenty of 3:30 games on the schedule, but to my liking, we actually have a lot of noon games too. I think that's when the Vikings play their best. I think specifically Kirk too. I think it feels that way. It feels like he's a creature habit. So I think that's part of the reason why. But lots of noon games on there, which as a fan I liked. And then obviously, we got that New Orleans one early in the season at 8:30 in the morning, which that'll be something. But if everybody remembers that one back from 2017, that one against the Browns is kind of same kind of deal. So we'll see what that's like when we get there. But without further ado, let's just run through it real quick. Look at the highlights. So we're going to start week 1 against the Packers. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Starting a new coach's tenure against our biggest rival at home. I think that's really going to possibly set the tone for the season. I think as long as we bring a good energy, and even if we lose, put forth a good effort, I think that'll say a lot about how much this locker room believes in this coach early on. So I think there's a lot to look at there. But again, doesn't get any bigger than playing the Packers. So pretty excited for that one. And that'll be followed up by the aforementioned game the Monday Night Football game that I already mentioned at the top of this with the Eagles. We're going to play on the road week 2 on Monday Night Football. Obviously that every time the Vikings go to Philly, there's always some energy there. So I'm curious how Kirk especially will come out in this one. I know he's got the poor Monday Night Football record, and I think Philly will be lit. So I would say this will be a fun one to keep in mind too. Looking ahead, I know Philly's definitely getting better. They just made the playoffs last year as the 7 in the NFC. Jalen Hurts is getting better every year. They're trying to determine he's the guy, but now they got they got a new weapon in A.J. Brown along with the developing Devontae Smith. So I think that'll be kind of a fun game. And then moving along a couple weeks after that, we're going to go to London. I think that's obviously everybody's known about that for a little while now as well. And that one is actually pretty good for the Vikings, in my opinion, although you're going to London, but it is technically a road game because this was one of the Saints home games they gave up to go to London. So instead of going to the Superdome, one of the toughest places to play in the NFL, we're going to London instead. So I think I'll take my chances there. I like that a lot. Even though the Saints, I don't think will be that great this year. I think they're still formidable, and giving up a true road game to play a neutral site game is great. So that'll basically make it 9 home games for us this year, along with 7 true road games and neutral site games. So I think that's literally about as good as you can get in the NFL. So I think that's great. And a London game, of course, for all those UK Vikings fans. And then moving along here, I should also mention, too, we got the bye week 7, which isn't great, but it isn't bad either. Like I was anticipating after that week 4 game against the Saints in London, I figured it'd be week 5, but it's not. We're going to play a couple games before that, so we'll get that week 7 bye, which I think it's somewhat towards the middle, not quite, but enough, I think, where it'll be probably a good reset to the season after we play 6 games. So I believe that's also where we had the bye week last year, too. But anyways, moving along farther into November on Thanksgiving night, I think this is probably the most marquee, interesting game, in my opinion, on the schedule, playing the Patriots at US Bank. I mean, the Vikings have had some recent history on Thanksgiving Day playing those early afternoon games against the Lions, and now we're going to get one of the most really historic teams at US Bank Stadium on Thanksgiving night. I think there's a lot of storylines to watch here. Obviously, the Patriots were a pretty good team last year. Mac Jones definitely shined in his rookie season. He's building off that again going into year 2. So I think there's definitely some things to watch there. I think that could be a fun game to go to as well, but depending on what you got going on Thanksgiving. But moving along, Got the Packers on New Year's Day going to the frozen tundra. I think late in the season like that, hopefully there's a lot on the line to play for. So definitely going to remember that one when we get to the end. That's where one of the last games of the Viking season last year, and obviously that was a disaster. But again, Kirk was out for that one too. So hopefully this brings better results here. And then following that up is going to Soldier Field. So back-to-back cold weather games against our two biggest rivals. I think this is about as bad as the NFL could draw it up. So I'll say this is probably the worst part of our season, just ending it like this. So the Vikings don't have a great history going to both Lambeau and Soldier Field. So I feel like if they're going to lock up a playoff spot, they're probably going to want to have it pretty well in hand by the time we get to week 17 when we go to Lambeau, because these last two games are going to be brutal. So definitely going to be, I mean, fun, but for the team, it's going to be extremely difficult. So if we're trying to get in the playoffs, like these are going to be games where you're definitely going to earn it. So I think we're just going to leave it at that, though. Again, I'm going to dive back into this with Bailey next week, and we'll go game by game, really give more thoughts on it, I guess, as far as the matchups and how those might play out. So with that said, thanks for watching once again. Again, hit that subscribe button below, as well as give us a follow on Twitter and Instagram. And yeah, we'll can't wait to dive into this with Bailey.